Have you ever seen a great photograph or read a moving book? Maybe you have dreamt of writing something powerful and inspiring. All these things begin, for some, as simple hobbies, and today's guest will talk about some small, mundane hobbies that turned into lifelong pursuits. Also, how an interest in photography sparked a curiosity for film. The Humanities Communication Arts Department at Norwalk Community College presents The New Directors, the show that introduces you to television's future writers, directors, and personalities. And now join our host, James Macri, to meet the next new director.
Thank you for joining us today for today's edition of The New Directors. All of the people involved with this program are students in the television production course and are directing, switching, controlling audio, operating cameras, and acting as talent for the first time today. The guests you are about to meet are students who, when are not on camera, are behind the scenes working hard to bring this program to you with as few mistakes as possible. Each student will write and direct 4 different productions. This program will give them the chance to talk about themselves, the productions they have completed, and give you the chance to get to know them and watch their progress throughout the semester. Our guest today is an NCC student and a film and TV production course who will introduce the course through her love of photography. She has also been interested in reading and writing. Now I would like you to meet our guest today, Karla Campos. Hi, Karla.
Hey, hi.
What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I've always enjoyed reading. I had always credited the Harry Potter books as being what started my interest. But looking back, I think I can go further to a younger age when I read the Magic Tree House books. In reality, it probably began well before that with a book I no longer remember. Other books that I've enjoyed over the years include Artemis Fowl and A Series of Unfortunate Events. Recently, I also read the Sherlock Holmes books, and I actually just started Lord of the Rings. I've always loved to read, and as a result, I've always wanted to write. Usually, I don't write anything in particular, but I have in the past finished some stories and poems. Overall, though, my favorite hobby is photography. Like reading, I don't really know when I began to take pictures. What I do know is, when I was 13, all I wanted was a camera. I've had a few point-and-shoots since then, and about 2 years ago, I was finally able to buy my DSLR. It's a Canon EOS Digital. And here, again, are some of the books I've read over the years. I really like to write. I've just never actually put anything out there. I just don't think I've finished all that many written things. And then here coming up are some of the pictures that I have taken. It's sort of like a compilation of pictures I've taken over the years. As you can see, some of my favorite pictures to take are like close-up photos of flowers. But I've also taken pictures of a couple different things. So, again, flowers are really interesting to me in photography.
Why did you decide to take TV production?
The reason I took this course is because I've always been interested in how television is produced. Like I mentioned before, I do love to take pictures, but pictures are obviously still images. So television is really interesting to me because of the fact that it's not just one still image, it's a series of moving images. And on top of that, there's audio to it. But even though I do love photography, and a big part of the reason I like TV is because of photography, I have to admit that I really like watching TV. And so, you know, watching shows on TV makes me really interested about how it is that they're made.
What are some of the most useful things you have found about this course?
Well, I learned what the f-stop and the ISO are and how it is that they affect the outcome of a video. I also learned what it takes to make a sequence. For example, that you need to do a storyboard, and then you also have to do like scout locations before you actually go out and film. After that, I learned how to edit in Avid, including how to add titles and music to a video. And lastly, I learned how to direct live TV, but not just directing. I also learned things like switching and camera operating, and also being like the floor manager. And I learned that that's very important to live TV as well.
Please tell us about the 4 sequences you created.
Yeah, well, I'd like to start with my learning sequence. My learning sequence was my first sequence here. Here's where I learned that storyboards were really important and also how to make them. I also learned the importance of cutting on the action, because that's what makes a minor thing like picking up a book slightly more interesting, at least to the viewer. And here again is that sequence where he's really just picking up and reading a book, but just by cutting in on the action, you can sort of bring a bit more interest to it. In the second sequence, again, we made storyboards and the camera placement sketches, but I also, just like I had learned in the first sequence. This time, though, I also learned the importance of keeping scenes short so that the viewer doesn't lose interest. It's pretty easy to get bored of one person talking, especially when the movie is a silent movie. So I learned that cutting back and forth between 2 people was the best way to keep interest. For my winter project, we had to use the 6 guidelines of good composition. One of these guidelines is action lines. There's also converging lines and lines of grace, for example, the C and the S curve. And we also had to use framing. With this project, I also learned how to add music and how to add titles to the video. So like, after the video was edited together, I learned how to add in the titles. For the orange project, which is this next one, I used many of the same techniques in the other videos, but this time I refined certain techniques like cutting in on the action. I also used various close-ups, not just to show action this time, but also to show the importance of objects, like, for example, here, the orange.
Please tell us about your best project.
My best project was my winter project. Some of my best editing work was on the winter project, but this project also used some of the camera techniques not found in the first 2 sequences. For example, in this project, we actually used continuous zoom outs, and some people use zoom ins. In this project, we also did shift focus and poor man's dissolve. But aside from the camera techniques, there were some editing techniques on this video that weren't on the others. For example, instead of cutting between scenes, we actually faded. And also on the audio, we used crossfading, so that you would slowly fade out of one song and into another one. These were important techniques, and they greatly enhanced the final video.
You have mentioned a variety of things that you have learned in this course. What are the most interesting and most important skills that you have learned, and how will you put them to use?
Well, I think the most important skill I learned was the technical parts of the camera, and how to improve a shot simply by using compositional guidelines. Before this class, I had a basic idea of like a photographic camera, but now I understand things like the ISO and the f-stop much better, and I would actually like to apply that knowledge to my photography now. I also understand how some of the artistic concepts are applied to video. Like, again, I had some of that background from photography, but I never really understood how that was applied to videos, which was interesting to learn. And I also learned compositional elements like lines of grace and rule of thirds, and how they, again, apply to video.
Today we got to meet someone who shared with us how simple hobbies can turn into a lifelong pursuit. As a new TV director, she has hoped to apply what she has learned at the NCC in making movie images and skilled photography. She has also planned to use her knowledge from TV Production 1 to enhance her current photography in the future films. I would like to thank our guest, Karla Campos, for joining us today. Thank you, Karla.
No problem.
We hope you enjoyed meeting one of our TV's future directors, and we hope you will continue to join us each week to watch our progress. Thank you, and have a good day.
I like rambling.
This has been The New Directors, with your host, James Macri, directed by Justin DeCausi. I'm your announcer, Chris Cipollone. The New Directors is a Norwalk Community College student production.